So here's where we are. Amazon just pulled off a coordinated exit from Quebec, shutting down every single one of its warehouses in just 2 months. 7 massive facilities gone. Almost 1,700 jobs wiped out. No gradual wind down, no real conversation with the communities impacted, just a swift, deliberate move that sent shockwaves across Canada's logistics sector. This wasn't some quiet pivot behind closed doors. This was a major corporate retreat. And if you're looking for the deeper reason behind it, look no further than Quebec's unique position. It was the only province in Canada where Amazon workers successfully unionized.
If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Your feedback helps shape what we cover next, and you being here keeps the conversation going. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
That fact alone changes the meaning of this entire story. You can't ignore the timing. A province organizes, a union wins, and within months, Amazon starts flipping the lights off and redirecting the flow of commerce out of Quebec. Labor advocates immediately called it what it looked like: retaliation. And based on how quickly Amazon pulled out, it's hard to argue otherwise. This wasn't about performance. Quebec wasn't underperforming. These weren't outdated warehouses. Amazon didn't face a collapse in customer demand or a financial loss here. This was about control, about sending a message. And that message is loud. Unionization is not compatible with the future Amazon is building. Because Amazon's future isn't built around people, it's built around automation, around robotics, around a logistics system that runs 24/7 with fewer workers, fewer demands, and no organizing bodies to deal with. And if a region becomes resistant to that vision, it's simply left behind. This isn't theory anymore. It's the reality that just played out across Quebec. And now, Canada's logistics infrastructure has to adapt on the fly. With Quebec's warehouses gone, the flow of products has been rerouted to Ontario and beyond, increasing travel distances, fuel costs, and delivery times. That might sound like a minor inconvenience for customers, but for the workers and carriers caught in this new system, it's a major shift in how the supply chain operates. More importantly, it's a shift in who controls the supply chain. Amazon is leaning into third-party logistics now. That means more subcontractors, more gig-based carriers, more layers of separation between the company and the people doing the physical work. On paper, this reduces costs and liabilities. In practice, it weakens labor rights and makes unionizing nearly impossible. Subcontracted workers have less job security, fewer benefits, and almost no negotiating power. And just like that, Amazon gets everything it wants without having to negotiate directly with anyone. This isn't just a business decision. It's a blueprint, and Quebec is the cautionary tale. Because the implications go far beyond warehouses. This shift signals a deeper change in how corporations interact with local economies, labor, and national policy. If a province dares to assert its labor rights, and the result is a complete corporate withdrawal, what does that say to every other region thinking about doing the same? It says, think twice. And that fear, that hesitation to organize or push for better conditions is exactly what companies like Amazon want. They don't need to win every labor battle in court. They just need to make it look risky enough to try. Let Quebec be the example, and suddenly, union talks across the country get a little quieter. But make no mistake, this wasn't just a blow to workers. It was a hit to Canada's economic stability. When a company with Amazon's size and influence walks away from a province, the damage doesn't stop at the warehouse gates. It affects local businesses, housing markets, and regional tax revenues. Communities that were built around the promise of stable jobs are now facing economic slowdowns with no replacement strategy. And meanwhile, Amazon continues to expand in other regions with fewer labor protections, more automation-friendly regulations, and cheaper logistics infrastructure. That's the global shift we're watching happen in real time. Add to that the impact of US tariffs and shifting trade policies, and the picture becomes clearer. Canadian operations, especially ones involving human labor and union contracts, are now seen as liabilities. The global market is tilting toward rapid automation and anti-union sentiment, and unless Canada adapts on its own terms, it risks being left behind in favor of faster, cheaper, less regulated environments. And that brings us to a hard truth. This isn't just about Amazon. It's about what kind of economy Canada wants to build. One that's efficient at all costs, or one that's built on sustainable labor, fair practices, and long-term growth. Because if Quebec, a province that dared to assert labor rights, can be erased from a multinational's playbook overnight, then the warning is real. Companies will always choose the path of least resistance. So what now? Canada can't afford to treat this like a one-off. This was a wake-up call, and if it's ignored, it will happen again. Governments need to step in not to stop innovation or scare off investment, but to ensure that technological progress doesn't come at the cost of human livelihoods. There has to be a balance. And if companies want to benefit from Canadian consumers, infrastructure, and labor, then they should be expected to respect the workers who make that system possible. That means stronger protections for unionized labor. That means rules around corporate closures and layoffs that actually consider the social cost. That means a clear strategy for workforce retraining in the face of automation, not just empty promises. Because without that, we're building an economy that works only for the companies at the top, while everyone else scrambles to keep up. The story of Amazon's exit from Quebec isn't over. It's only the beginning. And how we respond now will determine whether it becomes a one-time event or a defining pattern. If you're watching this and wondering what comes next, you're not alone. Was this a corporate shift driven by automation? A calculated response to unionization? A mix of both? Let us know what you think. Drop a comment and join the conversation. Like this video if you think workers deserve better than silence. Share it with someone who still thinks Amazon's retreat was just a smart logistics move. And subscribe because this is the kind of story that shapes industries. And we'll be right here, breaking it down. Every step of the way. Let's get something straight. This wasn't just a move away from Quebec. It was a move against a message. When Amazon pulled out of the only province in Canada where it had a unionized workforce, it didn't just pull jobs or shift operations, it pulled the rug out from under a growing labor movement. A movement that had shown workers they could organize, that they could win, that they could demand better from one of the most powerful companies on earth. And now, that victory looks like a cautionary tale. A warning: organize, and you might end up with nothing. It's hard to overstate how devastating that message is. Not just for the 1,700 workers now staring down unemployment, but for every Amazon employee across Canada and beyond. For every gig worker, warehouse associate, delivery driver, packer, picker, or sorter who saw unionization as a path forward. Because now, they have to ask, is it worth it? That kind of fear doesn't show up in company earnings reports, but it shapes everything. Fear weakens bargaining power before a single vote is cast. Fear keeps people from speaking up about conditions. Fear breaks solidarity before it even has a chance to form. And Amazon knows that. That's the power of this kind of exit. It's not just about shutting down buildings. It's about controlling the narrative. And here's the thing, they are controlling it. Amazon didn't need to say the words out loud. Didn't have to release a memo admitting it left because of the union. It just had to act, and let everyone else connect the dots. That's how these kinds of corporate maneuvers work. Quiet enough to avoid legal scrutiny, but loud enough to make a point. It's anti-union by implication, and it's terrifyingly effective. Now let's zoom out again, because this is bigger than Quebec. Canada as a whole is facing a crossroads. It's not just about logistics, it's about identity. What kind of labor system are we building? What kind of economic environment are we encouraging? Do we want to be a country where corporations stay only if they can operate unchecked? Or do we want to be a place where labor rights actually mean something even when it's inconvenient for billion-dollar brands? Because right now, we're not sending a clear signal. And companies like Amazon are taking full advantage of that ambiguity. And the shift to third-party logistics, that's not just a tweak in strategy. That's a fundamental reshaping of the labor landscape. It fragments the workforce. It eliminates the possibility of centralized organizing. It ensures that no one has enough leverage to push back. And it all happens under the radar, while companies pat themselves on the back for streamlining. Let's be blunt, this is union busting, repackaged as efficiency. Subcontracted workers, unlike Amazon employees, often don't have the same rights, protections, or support systems. They're easier to fire, harder to track, and they don't get counted in official workforce stats when the headlines say, Amazon is hiring. It's the illusion of job creation, without the accountability that comes with real employment. And the communities affected by these closures, they're not getting back what they lost. These weren't minimum wage, low-skill roles that could be replaced overnight. They were jobs with benefits, schedules, and long-term career potential for people who might not have had other options. Now those people are being told to adapt, to reskill, to chase opportunities that may not even exist in their region. And even if those jobs do return, they'll likely be inside heavily automated fulfillment centers. Fewer humans, more machines. More surveillance, less voice. That's the trade-off. which means we're not just losing jobs, we're losing power. And if no one intervenes, that trend will only accelerate. Now, let's talk about the government response because so far, it's been quiet. Too quiet. When nearly 1,700 jobs disappear in a matter of weeks, and the only explanation is vague corporate speak, there should be pressure. There should be questions. There should be action. Because if a province can be punished for unionizing and no one in power steps in, then every company gets the green light to do the same. This is where regulation needs to catch up to reality, not to stop innovation, not to block automation, but to make sure that people don't get steamrolled in the process, to make sure there are real consequences for economic disruption at this scale, to ensure that communities aren't treated like disposable assets when a corporate spreadsheet gets updated. And let's talk about retraining because that's the word everyone loves to throw around when automation comes up. But retraining for what? It's one thing to tell displaced workers to learn new skills. It's another to make sure those new skills actually lead to jobs that pay enough to live. You can't automate 1,700 jobs away and then tell people to learn to code without giving them a clear path forward. That's not transition. That's abandonment. And yet, that's what's happening. Right now. In real time. One province down, the rest on high alert. So where's the line? At what point does Canada say, no, you don't get to operate here only when it suits you? At what point do we recognize that economic power without accountability is a threat to every working person in this country? Because if Quebec can't hold on to a unionized workforce without losing the entire operation, then what does that say about the future of labor in Canada? What does that say to young workers, trying to find stability in a system that seems designed to keep them in constant uncertainty? What does it say to the families now grappling with layoffs, rising living costs, and an economy that moves faster than any social support system can keep up with? It says, you're on your own. And that cannot be the message we allow to stand. This is a turning point for labor, for logistics, for how we define progress. Because progress that leaves people behind isn't progress, it's just displacement. If Amazon wants to lead the future of commerce, then it should be held to higher standards, not lower ones. It should be expected to stay and negotiate, to adapt with its workforce, not around them, to invest in communities, not just profit off them and disappear. This story doesn't end with Quebec. In fact, it barely starts there. Because what Amazon did, pulling out of a province entirely, shutting down all 7 of its warehouses in less than 2 months, wasn't just a logistical shift. It was a calculated retreat, a power play, a deliberate move in a bigger game, and whether people realize it or not, Canada just became the latest battleground in the global war between labor and corporate power. The company didn't lose money in Quebec. It didn't run out of space. There wasn't some catastrophic operational failure that forced its hand. The numbers were fine. The demand was there. The infrastructure was built. And yet, the minute Amazon was faced with a unionized workforce, the only one in Canada, it shut it all down. All of it. That's not strategy. That's a statement. And the message couldn't be clearer. If you organize, you're on your own. And this isn't some overblown reaction. The people who know how these things work, labor organizers, workers' rights advocates, economists, they all saw it. They saw how clean the exit was. How quick. How decisive. They saw the silence from the company, the vague PR spin, the sudden dependence on third-party carriers. And they saw what wasn't being said out loud, that Quebec challenged Amazon's control, and Amazon chose to walk. Not negotiate. Not compromise. Just leave. And now, every other province is looking over its shoulder. Because if Amazon can vanish from Quebec completely, what's stopping it from doing the same in BC, or Ontario, or Alberta? The reality is, it's not just about unionization anymore. It's about the risk of unionization. The mere potential of organized labor is now enough for companies to reconsider their entire presence in a region. That's how fragile the relationship has become. And that's how aggressive the corporate strategy really is. And the irony is brutal. Quebec's workers did everything right. They followed the rules. They organized within the framework of Canadian labor laws. They didn't strike or sabotage, they bargained. They stood up for fair pay, better conditions, safety protocols. And instead of being heard, they were erased. That's not a negotiation tactic. That's economic intimidation. But it's not just workers who should be alarmed, it's entire communities. Because when Amazon pulls out, it doesn't just take jobs. It takes income. It takes local spending. It takes stability. Small businesses lose their best customers. Schools see enrollment drops. Rental markets shift. Local governments lose revenue. Entire regional economies take a hit. And for what? To avoid dealing with organized labor. That's the cost of this strategy. And Amazon doesn't have to pay it, we do. Time, it makes it nearly impossible for workers to organize. Because how do you unionize a company that technically doesn't employ you? It's a brilliant tactic. And it's devastating. Because the more companies follow that model, the less stable work becomes. The less power workers have, the more fragmented the labor force becomes. And when workers are isolated, their voices are easier to ignore. That's where this is headed. And unless Canada steps in with real regulation, it's going to become the new normal. But here's the part no one seems to want to talk about: automation. Because while unionization might have been the spark, automation is the long-term driver. Amazon's pivot isn't just about labor, it's about replacing labor altogether. The company has been aggressively investing in AI-driven fulfillment centers, robotics, and autonomous systems. The fewer humans involved, the fewer problems to manage. And that works great if you're Amazon. But for workers, it's a future that looks more and more uncertain. Because those warehouse jobs that disappeared in Quebec, they're not coming back. And if they do, they'll be different. Fewer roles, more surveillance, more tech, less protection, and almost no upward mobility. And yet, Canada is nowhere near ready for that shift. Our automation policies are lagging. Our retraining programs are underfunded. Our labor protections haven't caught up to the reality of AI-driven logistics. And while all of that gets sorted, workers are getting swept out of the system with nothing to catch them. So let's be real. This isn't just about Amazon. This is about how prepared we are as a country to deal with companies that can outpace regulation. Companies that move faster than policy. Companies that don't have to stay when things get inconvenient. And right now, we're not ready. Like the video, if you believe workers shouldn't have to choose between organizing and unemployment. Share it with someone who needs to hear what really happened in Quebec. And hit subscribe, because the more we talk about this, the harder it becomes for companies to pretend no one's watching. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.